Welcome back to the channel. Today we're doing a settings and FPS guide for DeltaForce. There's a lot of new stuff here, so I hope you guys will enjoy this. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below. To start here in the combat section of game, there's some interesting stuff here. This is going to be kind of personal preference. I personally do not have this on, but a lot of people do. But basically, based on the scope you're using, this could change your FOV. So I'd kind of test the setting and kind of see what you guys like. Same goes with reload logic improvement and stuff like that. It can like change the way your mags are put together based on the ammo you have in your inventory and how you reload. So again, I'd kind of test some of these settings. Same with reloading interrupts ADS. It's kind of just on you. Going down, you can change any hit effect color. I just think it should be whatever's easiest for you to see and understand you're obviously hitting them. Down here is just kind of cool settings, not really that important, but you can set like thresholds for what enters your safe box. If you get golds, I would turn this on. This guarantees that it will go straight to your safe box. So if you're getting shot as you're looting, at least you'll get that red in your safe box. Marked items too, you can set things as favorite. If you're really needing certain items and you find them, will go straight there. Finally, this is where the loot sharing stuff is. A lot of people ask me about this too. If you're playing solos or if you're playing solo fills and playing with random teammates, don't necessarily trust them. I recommend turning this stuff on. It will lock your boxes for a certain amount of time so teammates cannot get into your loot boxes. And finally, this is my stash item sorting order. Basically, whenever I open the stash, it'll auto sort and it auto sorts to this list. So again, this is personal preference, but this is a really cool feature they have that you are able to decide exactly where you want things to be organized, and the quality of life with the stash stuff is just amazing. I really recommend having this stuff on. Moving on to the keyboard and mouse section, this is where it's going to have all of my mouse settings and all my keybinds and all of the unique little settings that you can do with mouse and keyboard. So sensitivity, I would say generally this game compared to some other shooters, I would recommend having on the lower end. There's a lot of times where you're doing kind of like slow tracking and holding angles and trying to shoot very precisely. I think it's generally harder to do that on higher sense, but it's all about preference. This you can kind of mess around with, but I think I'll talk about this a bit later, but I think the best way to do this has have this set on independent offset optic control dedicated keybind. And basically what this is going to be is for your canted sights and your tack stance when you're aiming with your laser. You can do this by using a dedicated keybind instead of using like a scroll wheel to swap through your sights and stuff like that, or the switch optic bind. Nothing else here unless you're playing warfare stuff. I don't really have any settings for this. This is all default. Here are my keybinds. I'm kind of just going to do a quick scroll through these. Again, most of this is all preference. I think the best way to lean in these games is through Q&E toggle. A lot of people don't like this, but basically Q&E are the binds that I feel like are easiest to be using when you're trying to move, because most people are going to be using WSAD. And then when you're on toggle, you can still strafe while leaning. People always ask why toggle. They think it's slower. It's really not. You're able to be moving while leaning and not be interrupting your strafe. At the end of the day, some people don't like it though, but I do think this is by far the best binds for leaning. Here is where we're going to talk about the tack stance bind. I basically have my tactical offset optic on left click, which effectively means I'm double binding it to fire, and this is on hold. So what this does is when I go to hip fire or when I go to shoot my gun, not ADS, it will automatically go into tactical offset optic, which in always is my tack stance, which is my laser sight, which you can see here in these fights. It can be very effective, and I win a lot of fights with this, and you don't have to build as much into accuracy for hip fire as I did in the past. This is kind of a major thing that's changed in my gameplay recently. I would suggest trying this. Some of my friends don't like it. I know other people really do. Previously didn't use tack stance because I felt awkward using on different binds, but this feels really fluid, so I'd really suggest giving this a try. Another thing that we didn't talk about before, but this kind of changed, especially with Seneva being buffed. Quick melee, I never have really used until Seneva became more popular, because when a Seneva grapples you, you can actually melee if you're quick enough and stop you from being basically grabbed and zipped away. So you can't really do this if you don't have a quick melee bind. So I do recommend binding this or those sticky situations when the Seneva does get a hold of you. One thing a lot of people don't know about the tactical device, this is also how you turn on flashlights and lasers. And then also if you hold the bind, you can individually turn things on and off. So you can sometimes have a flashlight on, sometimes a laser on, or both off, that sort of thing. Blinding flashlight, some people don't know about this, but if you use specific flashlights in the game, they actually kind of work as an ability. You have about 2 uses per flashlight. And if you press this bind, you can full blind people. And it's very hard to deal with. And I would recommend definitely using this as a tactic on any operator, any gun you use, if you can afford it and have a flashlight. Moving on to screen interaction, nothing too crazy here. This is all just kind of going to be preference. In vehicle, don't have this. It's obviously just for warfare. Another really cool opportunity to use the new double binding features is actually with holding breath. If you guys don't know, when you hold your breath in this game, you're a lot more accurate. Not just with snipers, you should always be holding your breath, even if you're using an SMG or a rifle. It's so important that I recommend having your right click aim on hold and have your hold breath on right click toggle. So what this does is every time you go to right click and your ADS with your red dot sight, it automatically starts holding your your breath. Previously, you couldn't double bind this, so everybody would have to use shift or some other bind. ADS, then you hold the other bind or you tap the other bind and toggle it. But this allows you to now double bind. So I'd recommend for sure having right click, whatever you hold your breath with on the same bind. Next, I'm obviously not a controller player, so I will not go over any of those settings. That would be a nightmare. But this is something that's been added since the previous settings video, the operator preferences tab. These certain operators just have settings that you can change. Really only the movement characters right now. There's not a lot for the others. I'm sure there's going to be some in the future. But if you go back to keyboard and mouse and controls and combat, you can actually individually set profiles for whatever agent you want. So say, for example, you don't like a bind for Viren and his bomb, you can change that just for him, but not change the bind for the rest of the characters, because sometimes you might like G for this character, but you don't like for the other one. So this is something that's really cool. You can set individual setting profiles for specific operators, or you can just globally set them like I do, but just keep that in mind. Under the screen section, nothing too important going on here. This is mostly warfare settings. However, under operations, you can set some of these. This is kind of a preference thing too. I don't like this setting personally because I've gotten so used to not having it, but basically if you are shot, you can have the setting on. So when you get shot, it immediately exits your backpack or your UI tab or whatever menu you're in, which can be nice for some people, but I just get in the habit of getting shot, then actually hitting tab again and opening again, then I get stuck. But I do like this one of closing / picking up when sprinting. So just test these out on your own. On the graphics tab, I want to state this very clearly from the start. A lot of these settings are not going to be ideal for most people. It really does depend on the rig that you're on and your monitor and all your individual setup things. So kind of just use this as a baseline. I will also say for the most part, the game runs amazing on any settings. So it's really not that important. It's more about how you like the game. Anything that's really important, I'll try to make note of, but for the most part, everything can be preferential. To start, sharpness, probably the most important thing. Make sure this is 100. If it's lower, it just becomes more blurry. Simple as that. FOV, I think playing at a higher FOV is always a bigger advantage, but some people may struggle to see at a higher FOV. Basically, things just become smaller. You can see more of like your peripheral vision in your camera model. It's, again, a lot of people like 90, some people like 110, 109, whatever it is. 120 is what I like. Moving on to the graphics, I'm not gonna lie here. I haven't done tons of min-maxing of this. I generally just like my game to look decent while getting the most FPS possible. So these are the settings that I believe make the game look the best while running the best. Really just all low and mediums. I just kind of like some of the textures to be higher and doesn't look as bad when I'm playing as, in streaming, but my focus is really on the performance. And then the super resolution mode, I really want to focus on. This is where it all comes down to your rig. Frame generation's only available for 40 series cards or higher. If you turn this on, you will legitimately get close to double your FPS. It can raise a lot with this. It's not necessarily real, or it won't feel the same. It's something new that uses AI. I always have it off because some people complain there might be input delay. Really, when I've had this on and off, I haven't noticed that much of a difference. Super resolution mode, I would just try all of these, try different super resolutions. This is really something that's specific to you and how you like to see the game, what kind of frames you're trying to get, and again, what hardware you actually have. I just try to keep this balanced, As long as your game's not stuttering, running consistent, and you have good FPS, you should be happy. And with these settings I have, that's what I get. I have no stutters. I run consistently over 300 FPS on almost every map. I have no issue with performance in this game. Again, kind of test these out, but this should be your baseline of where you start out with your settings. One other thing I forgot to mention here, the eye comfort mode. If you normally get flash, your screen goes full white, you get blinded, it's jarring, it's something really hard to see. If you turn this on, it actually makes all the flashes a darker color, or kind of like a black, and it's way easier on the eyes. And sometimes I feel like you can actually see a bit better through the flash with this. So I definitely recommend turning this on, but again, it is preference. And finally, the audio. This is what I'm asked about constantly. And guys, I don't have anything special. People ask about if I have certain mixers or boosters or whatever programs to get better audio. How'd you hear that? How'd you hear this? Honestly, I think most of it just comes with time played in this game and understanding audio cues. There's nothing special going on here. The only thing that's really important is you have your master volume at 100 and your sound effect volume at 100. If it's too loud for you, just turn down your Windows volume. It's very important you have the game audio max so you can actually hear every audio cue possible. The only other thing that's really important is I would 100% recommend having HRTF on. This is basically better directional audio. Some people will prefer object-based binaural audio. It may even be better, but I just think it sounds so unnatural and so bizarre that I just prefer binaural audio by itself. Just make sure it's not off. Make sure this is on. And something that's new that's come out recently. They've added video volume. If you guys get your ears blasted when extracts happen, you know, when you jump into the water and dam, or when there's these cutscenes playing that are way too loud, just turn down your video volume. It makes all the screens, all the cinematics way quieter. And same goes for voice volume. When you hear mid-raid somebody talking, you know, one of the, like, you know, the announcers or Desmoulin's talking and giving a speech on Space City, it's very loud and annoying while you're playing. Turn this down and the voices are way quieter. Again, this is just kind of mid-raid effects. The copyrighted music playback, this should be off. This turns off all of the music that you hear in some of the king missions on the map, you know, like your wall breaker and your rocket and all those types of missions. They always usually play music, but if you have this off, you won't hear it. So if you're getting pushed at these objectives, it's a lot easier to hear people coming instead of just hearing the music constantly blaring in your ears. But yeah, that's it for audio. Thank you guys for watching this. I hope this answered some of your questions and helps you get better FPS, or hopefully you learn something new. If you guys have any questions about this, I'll try to answer as many comments as I do below. I'd also really recommend joining my Discord. There's a link in the description below. I have a tech support channel in there that people help with all the time, and I even answer some questions from time to time in there. Really friendly Discord and people wanting to help out, so do check that out if you do have more questions about settings. Thank you for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe. I'll see you guys in the next one.